faculty lecture series. This is the second one in our installment. We've got flyers for the next one. I know what some of them have been kind of floating around. The next talk is going to be Wednesday, March 7th by Lyle Carbon. It's titled Dinosaurs Armed and Dangerous. And so you can take a look at that. Also, if you are not on our mailing list and you'd like to be on our mailing list, you can sign this. Put please prepare as legibly as possible. So in some cases, I've gotten things sent back, and I think it's because I misread. So put your name and your email, and then I'll send you notifications the Friday before, so you'll know what the next talk is about. So that will be up front here. We usually have, and I know if you probably saw, we're supposed to have light refreshments. Well, I called them when I was 20 minutes ago, and they had no idea where my order went. So they said they'd get something together and they'll bring it. So it'll probably come in a little bit late. So what I'll do is I'll just leave them off to the side, and then you can grab them during the question and answer time. So apologize, but they are good stuff. We've got brownies and cookies, and hope she gets some extra stuff in our order. So our talk tonight is Adventures in Backpack Filmmaking by Ledonne. So let's welcome him.
First, I'd like to take the opportunity to thank Christy for covering for me. I appreciate that. I actually ate all of the refreshments already, but I'm a little embarrassed. You know how it goes. So, yeah. All right. Well, I appreciate you all coming out tonight. I have a very exciting show, or at least I think so. I hope you agree. I'm going to be showing a lot of work that I've done over the last 5 or 8 years, and think of this as like the director's commentary track, because we're going to have the lights off. I'm going to have the volume low, so I'll explain what you're seeing as we go. Hopefully my voice lasts for the full hour. And I would like to start by thanking everyone for coming out tonight, encouraging you to learn more about Grizzly Video Productions, which is the on-campus film program that we're starting here this year at Adams State. Please look for more events that we'll be having as our students work on their own films and we present the work that we have. I'm also on the board of directors for the Southern Colorado Film Commission, and we're working very hard to get big-name productions to come to the Valley, maybe spend some money here, and show the world what a beautiful place we live. So that's another exciting reason why I moved back to the San Luis Valley. A little bit about me. I was born on a cold winter in the early 1980s, and I grew up here in the San Luis Valley. I moved away to go to college in Boston. I moved back. I worked at the Boys and Girls Club. I volunteered at KRZA. I taught at my old Taekwondo dojo, and I started my video company. And after a few years of doing so, I decided to go get my master's in fine arts. And so I have an MFA in film production from American University. A lot of the stuff you're seeing was made during that time, from 2007 until this last year. So I was thinking about what kind of talk I would give, and this idea came to me because I was reading this book. It's called Shooting in the Wild. Shooting in the Wild, an insider's account of making movies in the animal kingdom by Chris Palmer. On page 4, there's a passage that I'd like to read to you to start our evening off. This boom in wildlife filmmaking has been fueled partly by new technologies. Cameras are smaller and lighter, lights are more efficient, and editing tools are more compact, which makes it easier for filmmakers to work in remote, wild places. Filmmaker Danny Ledonne manages to fit all his production equipment in a single backpack. A broadcast quality high-definition camera, a lightweight tripod, a shotgun microphone, a lavalier mic, batteries, charger, headphones, lens filters, lens wipes, a waterproof camera housing, and a binder with contact information and releases. Now this book is a little bit dated, unfortunately, because I've upgraded to a new backpack, which also in fact holds my laptop, hard drives, and my own personal copy of Shooting in the Wild by Chris Palmer. Yeah. So what you see out here tonight are some of the tools of the trade. I've taken these on a lot of jobs. Some equipment's newer than others, but the thinking is that there's no one piece of equipment that solves every problem, and you have to think on your feet and use the best tools for that job. So over the next hour, you'll be seeing a lot of work that uses different tools, and we're going to have a Q&A afterwards. So if you have any questions, or inevitably someone's going to ask me, I'm thinking about buying a camera, what should I buy? I wish I could get a commission for that because I feel like I answer that question a lot. That's okay. So what the heck is this? Can we get the lights, please? This is a lecture about backpack filmmaking. Backpack filmmaking is very loosely defined as taking the camera to places regular people do not go. And it's not like I invented it. The reason that it was so funny that Chris included that in his book, he was a professor of mine, by the way, and I wrote in my journal about how I did all of that, and he thought he wanted to put it in his book. But after that, everyone kind of had this joke around American University that, like, I invented that no one else had ever thought of putting a camera in a backpack before Danny Ledonne did it. And so in his British accent, it was almost like he was saying aloud, Danny Ledonne manages to fit all his film equipment in a single backpack. It is remarkable what Danny does with that backpack. It's a little bit strange, but I was happy to, you know, carry the weight on that particular issue. So I'm going to start with some photos. Once upon a time, back in college, I started working on films. You can see me on the far left. These were films that had a large crew. This had about 20 people, and you see behind us the pipes to scaffolding that we would build. I love climbing on things and building things, so I built a lot of stuff. And so I worked on film crews. I worked on about 40 films, short films, music videos, feature films when I was in college, and I learned a lot about how filmmaking worked. I worked in lighting and also in camera. I'm sitting on an Apple box, which is actually a technical term for a piece of film equipment, and it was the best place to sit when we were waiting between takes to go up for the next shoot. As assistant camera, my job was to keep the camera clean, and it was literally my baby from when we got to the set until when we left. Now, I worked on some rigs with as many as 27 cases that the camera came in. 27 cases with all of the accessories, all of the parts, the matte box, the filters, the lenses, all of the components that go into a large film camera. Needless to say, I could not fit it in a backpack. I worked on films doing grip electric work, and that truck behind us is filled with stands and lights that we worked on. And so that was my crew, and I would say, without having any military experience, that this was the closest I ever got to being in the Army, because these were my guys, and every day we risked life and limb going on, carrying lots of heavy stuff with lots of electricity up and down day and night. But I was in charge of that grip truck. We built the shelves for it. We filled it with lights that we rented. And the guy in the center front named Matt, he was the best boy grip, and I asked him to clean out the grip truck halfway through the summer because it was getting really dirty. And once he cleaned out the grip truck, I rewarded him for his efforts. That's right. How'd that photo get in there? So it was a lot of work. That was an overnight shoot, and we got really muddy, but that was life in the trenches. But I love being able to climb around on things. I'd put lights where you couldn't put lights. I would rig all kinds of grip hardware, which is a lot like Tinker Toys, to be able to put lights where the director wanted them. And some of them were a lot bigger than others. We had some big lights that we made movies with. And so over this time, I learned a lot about how cameras worked. I also learned that if I put on sunglasses, I could go to sleep on set. That's right. This was in Arizona in the summer of 2003. It was a really cool shoot, and by really cool, I mean really hot. And that's the hood of a car that we actually mounted the camera to, so we could drive, and I was in charge of holding onto the camera and pulling focus or changing the magazines. I distinctly remember on this shoot, I was changing magazines. The film canister only holds 11 minutes of film. So every 11 minutes, you have to change out the magazine and put in new film. You have to have a changing bag in the dark so that no light touches the actual film. And so we used the back of the car where I was standing and I was changing the magazines, and my hands are in the dark, and you literally have to do this with your mind because you cannot see it. You have to know and feel how to take the magazine out, put it in the canister, thread the new magazine through, and have it ready to go back onto set. And as I was doing this, someone else on set said, "Look, a snake!" And I saw, sure enough, there was a snake coming toward me as I was in the car. So I basically like climbed into the car and went back down after it was over. The things you do in college. So then I started doing more outdoor filmmaking. John Homer was an outfitter, and he let me borrow his duster jacket and his hat so that we could pose for this picture. I filmed an elk bow hunt, and it was at least as hard for me as the hunters because I had to run in front of and then catch up to the hunters as I was getting all of their shots. And so over this time, I started working on more films. This is a film about blind bird watchers. The people there bird entirely by ear. This is in southern Texas. And so about then, I went to grad school and I started working on projects in more remote regions. We went to Alaska, and these are 4 ladies who picked me up on the road. They're each holding about 25 pounds apiece, in case you're wondering. Yeah. And so, you know, I got to do the camera work I'd been doing, but I was doing it in more remote places. And you'll see some video from this, so I'm going to skim through this. But know that this happened. I was really there, and I had a great time. Growing up in Colorado, I loved being outdoors. I loved cinematography, and if I could find a way to do those things together, I found that I was the most happy. The only thing I found that compares is teaching what I love to do to other people, which is why I'm at Adams State. We also went to the Galapagos Islands in the summer of 2009. I'll be showing a lot of video from that, but needless to say, that was an adventure in and of itself. You'll see some time lapses. We did not have the correct equipment to set up the camera. The correct equipment is something called a tripod. It has 3 legs and you can set your camera on it. We didn't bring that with us. So needless to say, we would ghetto rig the camera. American University has never seen these photos, by the way. But there were lots of animals to film in the Galapagos, and that is the most delicious ceviche that I've ever had. One of the wonderful things about traveling is eating the local cuisine, and that's something that I've always tried to say yes to as part of the experiences that I have. And that is the seat next to mine on the airplane. I made sure that the camera was well taken care of on the flight back from the Galapagos to mainland Ecuador. Isn't that shocking? Children visit that place, folks. Just a fun fact, I'll talk more about tortoises later, but it takes tortoises approximately 90 minutes to have sex. Most of us wish we could last that long. So yeah, the Galapagos Islands were a great experience. I'm really glad that I did it. And it's a magical place. I don't know how else to describe it. There's really nowhere else in the world that's like it. And I realize not everyone is going to go there. Secretly, I wish that not everyone would go there, because there's something about its relatively pristine environment that is really worthwhile. Those are real tortoises, and you'll see them fighting when we get to the footage. So this was my crew. The 6 of us worked on a film production down there, and we had a great time. The woman in the middle is Suzanne. She was my film partner. And we would be out sometimes until midnight downloading the footage that we shot that day, because we would film sunrises, we would film all day, then we would film sunsets, and then we would review all the footage. By the 4th or 5th day, there was this great rumor going around class that Suzanne and I had a thing going, because I would sneak out of a room every night about midnight. I would say, oh no, we're just downloading footage. I said, oh yeah, is that what you call it? But it was a fantastic place. We also went to mainland Ecuador, and we went down the Amazon River. I don't have any footage of that, so I'm just going to show you these stills. Oh my God, do you know what a bug net is? They are awesome. If you were in a place that has that many mosquitoes, and you were staying in these treetop places without sealed windows, the bug net is your best friend. It is the only way that you will get to sleep at night. So we were actually staying at the Hamu Lodge, which is on the Cuyabano National Wildlife Preserve in Ecuador. It was a wonderful place. Being from a landlocked state in Colorado, it was amazing to actually stay on the water. That is the river. You're seeing there the river covered completely in vegetation, but there is no ground there. That is all built up from below.
Oh, the river.
I met some of the locals there. They were very friendly. And I was actually blessed by a shaman at the village that we visited. My understanding is that no women who were menstruating were allowed to go to the ceremony. That's not a joke, that's the rule. This is from a project I will show you in New York City. We set up a bunch of cameras and we did some stop motion animation with trampoline, and that was great fun. There I am set up with several of our cameras. I frequently make silly faces in my photos, so forgive me. Oh, just the way it works. This is for my documentary, a film I made about ducks. You'll be seeing that trailer tonight. And then several times I've been around or filmed controlled burns in Florida. You'll be seeing some of that footage as well. There's also backpack filmmaking in urban areas. I filmed 4 years of high school football. You'll be seeing some of that. And frequently I felt like I was traversing the urban jungle. I did not have a car in DC, so I would take the subway and then I would walk to wherever high school I was filming at that night. And frequently it meant going up a hill, up the bleachers, and then up through the press box on top to the very highest point. And by the time I got up there, I was as exhausted as I would have been if I summited a mountain in a more rural area. But this was my favorite school. Cardozo High School overlooks a lot of the city. And so I went up there and I took a good picture of the view that you can see from the city from up there. It's really the best place. I would say that one of the advantages in general of wildlife filmmaking or filmmaking is that you get the best seat in the house, almost by definition. You walk in with a camera and everyone gets out of your way, and you have a press pass, and you have access to places that most people do not see. That's one of the perks of the job. This is me and me in 30 years. That's Larry Angle, my beloved film mentor at American University. Right now we're figuring out some settings for our camera before we put it in the underwater housing and then put it in the swimming pool. This was in preparation for going to the Galapagos Islands. And then for living in 4 years in DC, I decided I needed to make at least one film that was like a political, on the streets of DC film. So I went around and I interviewed people at the Jon Stewart Stephen Colbert rally that was held about a year and a half ago now. It was good times, and it was one of the few times I've gotten to be in front of the camera in a while. I actually started off my career, so to speak, by doing acting. I was in several plays here at Adams State. I started doing acting for my own movies in high school, but I realized I loved being behind the camera, telling the story, editing the movie, and so that's how I ended up being a filmmaker. I love this photo because it's Golden Gate Bridge. You will actually see the shot that I'm shooting here when we get to the Ocean for Life promotion that I'm going to show you. And one of the things about backpack filmmaking is that the camera, of course, is a heavy object. And depending on how you're holding it, it makes you very front heavy. So having a backpack to help offset that weight is actually very beneficial. That wasn't a joke. If you're laughing because you think my butt is fat, I don't appreciate it. And that was taken recently with the rig that I have now. While it doesn't look like I need my gaiters there, by the time I actually hiked into where I was filming for a project that I'll show you a little of later, I definitely needed my gaiters, and indeed it went all the way up to my thighs, which is at least 2 feet off the ground, I think. All right. And then this is my friends Shelby and Corey. I traveled to New York and we worked on a project there. I'll be showing you some footage from that. Again, if you can fit it in a backpack, you can go anywhere and make a movie about it. This is kind of like a Where's Waldo photo. Where's Danny? He's in the bottom corner. I ruined it. All right. This is the Smithsonian Museum of Natural History, and I'm filming an award show there. That elephant is not alive, or at least it wasn't at the time that I was in there filming, thankfully. But yeah, again, you get exclusive access to go places. Most people pay to get into the places that I get paid to go to. So that's a really wonderful dynamic of doing what I do. That's my buddy Ted. Ted is about 6'5", and so we made the greatest filmmaking pair ever. Whenever Ted and I went on a shoot, I would always call it another of Danny and Ted's excellent adventures. We're on a boat filming on the Anacostia River. And this was the Teton Mountains in Jackson, Wyoming. I'll be showing you some footage of a film my students made about paragliding. They needed someone to actually go paragliding to film it, so guess who volunteered? All right, without further ado, I'm going to get into the part that's actually worthwhile to watch, and that's the films that I've worked on. So again, I'm going to moderate the volume. It's going to start kind of loud because this is in the middle of my Kenya footage, but I'm going to kind of show you some of this, and then we'll move right on through, and I'll just talk throughout, and I'll keep sipping water. Ready, set, go. Lake Nakuru, and this is where all of the flamingos go every year to basically feed. And so it's a sight to be seen. All the footage you're seeing are from 5 different national parks that we visited in Kenya. This was a trip that was led by Dr. Tim Armstrong here at the college. He's in the audience tonight. If you get a chance to go on one of these trips, it is a once-in-a-lifetime experience. There is just nothing like the wilderness in Africa. This was a mother rhino and her baby, and when we stayed still in our safari vehicle and we were just very quiet, we turned off the engine and they became very calm and trusted us enough to get very close while we filmed. And while we were there, we visited a village. our visit with the wildebeest migration. We're seeing a pretty small sample of a very large herd of wildebeests that traverse across Kenya and Tanzania this time of year. In case some of you are wondering, I was on the long end of my lens for a lot of this stuff. Hippos are extremely dangerous and you should not get near them. So there's so much wildlife in Africa, there's so many different species of animals. It's easy to think if you're a carnivore that you can step out on the savannah and just look at the menu of what's for dinner. There's so many choices. So now this is Alaska. We're working on some wildlife filmmaking techniques by learning more about how to rappel. And then once we know how to do that, we're using cameras as part of our training.
All right, doing good, girl. Just keep working your way, you got it. Just work your way. Keep your feet flat.
So this was an 8-day course called Extreme HD in Alaska. And we trained in all kinds of different environments. You're going to see some of our footage. This was one of my favorite days just because I love climbing and climbing around. And frankly, in a lot of ways, Alaska, I felt more at home than anywhere aside from being at home in Colorado. Alaska in a lot of ways was like Colorado on steroids because the mountains were just, they were bigger and they were closer relative to everything else. But
yeah, go ahead and work your lock. Start working your lock.
Okay. And before you commit, take a look to the horizon.
horizon's nice.
Okay. You got the shot. Stay then going.
So you can sometimes, depending on.
And so you can see we have these clamps attached to the camera so that we can actually, if we drop it or we need our hands for something else, the camera doesn't go down the mountain. Unfortunately, you don't have 4 hands, so you can only do one thing at once.
You can tell when he smiles when he says that how nobody likes it.
Get a close up of my dentures.
Ah, there we go.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Pull it through. Yeah, man, that's it. Right.
You know, learning about how to tie knots, things like that become very relevant and important.
Get one more video.
This is not a good time to learn how to use a camera, by the way. I recommend knowing how to use your camera very well before you're hanging off the side of a mountain, because there will be other things that you will need to be thinking about more when you get to that point.
And if you don't feel this stopping, you don't get this.
So on this day, we learn how to do some ice arrests. We're on ice and we're using ice axes. This was a lot of fun.
Done, even though if you're not left or right handed. Because if I'm walking with this axe in my left hand and I take it left, this now becomes master hand.
Okay, Mr. Horner. It's been a long time since I've been on ice, you know that? So this is what we're going to try to do. We're going to try to combine exactly what we want in terms of combining extreme and HD. What we're going to do is have everyone practice self-arrest.
Hit, arrest. There we go.
Arrest. But we're going to come up with 3 camera angles.
3, 2, 1, travel. There we go. That's what I wanted. Yeah! Nice job, stuntman!
And I think it should be a great experience. Don't be afraid to gather steam before you self-arrest. Carry on.
This is my worst nightmare ever. How tight do I need it?
So right now, everyone that flies in Alaska has to do this kind of training. There aren't a lot of roads in Alaska, so you have to use small planes to get from place to place. And you have to learn how to get out of those small airplanes, even if they crash.
Are they gonna make it?
And so you're seat belted in, and by now you better know which side the seat belt unbuckles. So when the airline attendant tells you that stuff, it's kind of important. You think I'm crazy, but you know, it's important to know how to get out of a situation like this, especially with the rates at which planes, small aircraft go down in this kind of weather, in this kind of environment. So they do industrial survival training specifically for activities like this.
Good job, dude.
I was so scared when we heard about this.
The first time I panicked when I hit the water. I died.
I lived!
Do it again.
And this is one of our instructors.
I like to control what I'm doing. I like to control everything that I'm doing so that I'm not victimized. I hate being a victim. I think that's what I like most about it. I think I like giving control to people, and that's why this class here, that's why sometimes I beat up you guys, because I want to give you a gift. And that gift is to be able to be confident in the stuff, man. Pack a pack, light stoves, put up a tarp, tie a couple knots, make a difference in your life. I mean, you guys are pretty special when you think about it. People don't volunteer for this stuff. I mean, they really don't. They sit in their lounge chairs, lazy boy recliners. They watch other people doing this kind of stuff. They watch people like you doing climbing in the rain, glacier travel, flipping upside down, and they all think the same thing. They think, I can't do that. I want to do it, but I can't do it. Teach them how to swim, teach them how to build a fire, and teach them how to appreciate pain. And That's the thing, is to prove to you guys you can do this, but it's not going to be easy. It's like learning how to use a camera. It's obvious that you know more than anybody about this camera, but you won't be able to get it far back in the woods unless you improve your skills. You'll be filming what other people film. And I think that's the whole thing about it. The whole thing about this is to film what other people can't film, man. That makes you special.
Yeah, so Alaska was awesome. We did a little bit of B-roll filming after we finished the trip. And so we went to Denali National Park. And we didn't film a lot because I just finished 8 days of filming. One of the things about backpack filmmaking is you don't always know when to stop. But, you know, you have a camera on you, get a couple shots like this. I think a few years ago, sea otters were actually voted the most adorable creature. It's like scientifically proven. Yep. Right? Yeah. And then these were some Dall's porpoises that joined us while we were out at sea. So yeah, good times in Alaska. The next shot I just like for very basic reasons. If you've never lit a fire this way, I recommend it. It's fun. Yeah. Magnesium.
The Anacostia, of course, is part of...
And now this is work I was doing for NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration in DC. Some of the work we would do is just film cleanups of the Anacostia River, which is part of the Chesapeake Bay watershed, and it feeds into the Potomac River. A lot of people have forgotten about it, but literally all of the congressmen and senators' shit ends up in this river.
It's important to our effort to clean up the Chesapeake Bay, and as President Obama said, the Chesapeake Bay is our national treasure. What you're doing here is so important to our nation.
I want to join with my colleague Senator Cardin in thanking all of you who got out there, rolled up your sleeves, got on the boats, and pulled out the trash in the Anacostia River. We're going to keep doing this year after year after year until we don't have any more trash in the Anacostia River.
I can remember when this park was a mud pit. You remember that? When this park was a mud pit and it didn't get anyone's attention. And we had a vision. We had a vision that in fact this would be the people's river. So this is not only a green movement, this is not only an environmental movement, this is a people's movement to clean up our river.
Let's face it, this is America's river. We are within the shadow of the Capitol and the Washington Monument. When I go over the country, believe it or not, I tell people about the Anacostia. I tell people about the community response. I tell people about how folks are working together to protect this treasure, clean the water, recover the shores, honor the heritage. Thank you.
Without getting on my high horse, it's not enough to film pristine environments. It's also important to show the impact that humans have on the environment and the changes that we can make as part of that. So a lot of the work I did at NOAA, in addition to filming very pristine areas, was also to show the cleanup efforts that are ongoing, that are necessary to undo a lot of what we've done. This was in Florida. To date, this is still one of my favorite short films, and to me, this really typified what backpack filmmaking was about. It's about getting in with your equipment, moving around very quickly, and trying to find out what the story is, getting in and out, and getting the story that you need to tell. I had a professor in grad school who said, you know, it's called television for a reason. You have to have a vision. You have to show what it is that you want the people to know. It's not enough to point your camera. You have to have an idea. You have to have a story. So this is a film about adding fire instead of putting it out.
really, the overall goal of our land is to restore the land back to what, you know, pre-European conditions were. Really what we want here is a southeast wind, and it keeps switching. It's coming from the east, and then sometimes it's switching to the northeast. And then they predicted east and then switching to southeast by the afternoon. Bob, you'll be watching for spot overs. Because when the fire really gets going, you can have burning embers that'll carry like into that field over there, and they can carry a quarter mile. So that's why we have the water, is to get those put out. Because we need to stay in this block. Yeah, most of our burns are places that have not been burned yet. You know, I mean, 25, 30 years probably without a burn like this. So the goal is to get everything burned once. But areas that haven't been burned for a long time, it takes 3 or 4 burns to get things back the way they should be. Then the burns aren't so intense. They're just low intensity ground fires. And it makes it a lot easier. And you can burn larger blocks. The big trees will be fine. Some of these smaller trees, we want those to get burned up anyway. There's too many. Oh. This is an exotic grass, kogan grass, and it's highly flammable. And unfortunately, it's growing right up against this pine stand. And when fire gets in kogan grass, it can be pretty bad. We're trying to get this all burned in over here, because you're going to have a fire, and then it's going to be a catastrophic fire, in which everything burns up and everything dies. Hopefully I'll bring the grandkids back here and we'll see mature longleaf pine forest, if I'm still around, that looks the way it looked, 200 years ago. I mean, that's the goal. It's going to take a long time to restore this land. I mean, it was heavily degraded for a long time, but, these are all the first steps, what you're seeing today.
Yeah, it was a cool adventure. We just found out about a controlled burn. We went down there and got out of control, but had to film it. Go on. So these are just a sample of the many highlight reels I made for high school football players while I was in DC. The Wilson Tigers were the football team that I filmed for 4 years. And I knew nothing about football other than the very basics going into this. Football was an interesting challenge. Aside from what I've already filmed, it's actually not that different, because whether you're filming wildlife or whether you're filming football players, you don't know what's going to happen next. You have to follow the ball, you have to follow the play, and oftentimes when the ball is snapped, several players will try to fake that they have the ball, so it's easy to be fooled just as the players on the defensive team would be. And so what I would do is I would film all the games, and then we would take the best plays and we would put them together in highlight reels for the players. And then college recruiters would see this footage, and a lot of the students that we help in inner city DC who would not have otherwise gone to college got an opportunity to play on athletic scholarships. And so in the years that we did this, we raised millions of dollars for high school students from inner city DC to get financial aid and athletic scholarships to play at a four-year university. And it was a lot of fun filming football games. This became my Friday night. And truthfully, I miss it. I miss the excitement. I miss going out there every Friday night to film these. I know that's something that we can do at Adams State, and I wouldn't be surprised if in a year or two we're doing a lot more of this here on campus. So yeah, you get the idea. Fun times. So this is a project that I worked on with some friends. It was like an experimental idea for a film.
Jesus, how did you, what happened? Story, tell me the story.
I wanted to make a film about a relationship, but I didn't want to tell it in a particular order. I just wanted a bunch of scenes from a relationship, and then we actually built a special DVD that plays the scenes in a random order every time you watch it. So it's literally a different film every time. The number of scenes that you see and the order in which you see them really do change the context of what's happening. And it was a lot of fun over the course of 3 days. Corey and Shelby and I just came up with all these ideas for improvised scenes. And sometimes we would film for 5 or 10 minutes at a time, and then I just used the best moments for this film called Moments, in which we sort of explore the ups and downs of a relationship, from their first kiss to breaking up to getting back together and all the times in between.
Left approximately 100 yards. 50, 25, 10, and go. That one's great.
Yeah, sexy.
How do you do it?
Yeah. Well, let me tell you. Now that's a beautiful shot. That's a sexy shot.
Oh, even wetter. Oh,
yeah. Let's get some fun. You remember what this is like, right?
I did. I dealt with it.
I know you did. I am fucking dealing with it.
Yeah, really well. Really well.
I'm doing it as best I can. What the hell is your problem?
Really fucking great.
Fuck you.
So what's the, like, the thing that you want? What do you want to happen?
Oh, you're not looking at me like you hate me.
Today I quit smoking again. Tell you that, I guess. Give me a call. Touch it in. Bye.
It was fun to shoot it like a documentary. This is a trailer for a project that I'll tell you more about. This was our film in the Galapagos, telling the story of the islands and all of the elements that are in play today and the conservation challenges to restore them to their pristine or close to it endemic indigenous state of the wildlife. premise behind the Galapagos game was an interactive program for middle school science students to learn about ecosystems and how interdependent they are. This is some footage from Galapagos that I'm going to show you as I talk more. Basically, the idea was these islands, as most island habitats are, have very fragile ecosystems, and the introduction of any new species, whether it's a plant or an animal, even a seemingly benign one, can drastically alter the evolutionary process or the symbiotic relationships between the animals there. The Galapagos lizards were just quite an interesting creature. The iguanas here, the marine iguanas, as well as the land species, were some of the most charismatic creatures to me. I just enjoyed hanging out with them. They didn't always do much, but I never had a pet reptile growing up, and it felt cool just to hang out with them. As you might imagine, a lot of animals that have never encountered humans or predators of any kind, for that matter, are not very shy. They really have very few evolutionary predilections about allowing you to get very close. So in a way, it was an ideal filming environment because we could get very close without disturbing an animal. Every animal has its own comfort zone, its own bubble that you need to respect. And if you get too close, you alter its behavior. You may actually compel it to run away, or if it's a dangerous animal, it might try to fight you to defend its territory. So that's something to be aware of. There are a mix of wild tortoises as well as ones that are being kept on the Galapagos National Park as part of rehabilitation efforts to increase their populations. They're very slow. They live to be about 200 years old. They aren't even viable for reproduction until about the age of 60. So imagine these guys in a movie called The 60-Year-Old Virgin. That's these guys. This is how they settle traffic jams and other disputes. They almost seem animatronic to me. They didn't seem like real animals. So why the heck were we filming cats? Well, part of the point was humans introduced all sorts of species when they arrived, and cats had a devastating effect on the finch population as well as other birds. So, you know, we'd go around the villages and just ask to film their cats. And tourists don't usually come and ask to do this, but it was part of our project, and so we wanted to film, you know, the introduced species that humans inevitably bring with them. There were about 15 or 20 goats that were introduced to one of the Galapagos Islands when they were first being explored. People would leave goats on the islands, and that was just a way to guarantee a food source. Well, they came back a few decades later, and there were something like 40,000 goats that had basically taken out all of the natural vegetation. They just ate everything. The sea lions, however, were something else. They make these horrible noises all the time. In the water, they love to swim and play with you, but on land, they're very territorial and slow and mean. The hardest things to film are little things. Big things are easy to film. Elephants are easy to film. Tortoises are easy to film. What are hard to film are little birds, little monkeys, little insects, because they're harder to see. You have to get closer to get a good shot, and they move around all the time. So it's very difficult to get a good shot of these little birds. Watch, listen to what I say on this shot.
Little bird, come back.
Little bird, come back. Ah, I wasted so much tape on those little birds. Anyway, so these are some of the time lapses that we filmed while we were there. Sunrise is always at 6 a.m. and sunset is always at 6 p.m. year round. That's what happens when you basically live at the equator. The climate was nice. It was a little hot in the middle of the day, but you know, I think island paradise is an understatement. There are about 40,000 people that live on the Galapagos Islands, mostly supported by tourism and fishing industries. They're also doing tremendous efforts to preserve their habitat and sustainably harvest what they use on the islands. They're kind of leading the way as far as sustainability goes. And from one island to the next, they check your bags to make sure you're not taking any nuts, any plants, anything else that you could contaminate other islands. So they do take their charge pretty seriously. Which was perfect for our project, because that's what we were basically talking about.
Back here live at the waterfront
Oh, what's
village
this?
with my friend the zombie,
Oh, boy.
Jonathan. You're looking good. Jonathan just got an awesome face paint job. What do you think? I like turtles. All right, you're great.
Yeah, we all like turtles. We all like turtles. That's why I put that in here. We love turtles. All right. This is a film one of my students made about paragliding. They took a little handheld camera with them on the glide. This is about halfway through the film, so you just see the good stuff.
As long as that, because there's nothing like being up in the air floating around. I feel like you have something on everybody over.
This is a tandem or two-person paraglide. It lasts about 5 or 6 minutes, but you can go for hours if you know how to ride the currents. It's an amazing sport. It's very relaxing, at least on nice days like this.
When you're a beginner, they make chutes on the low end that will stay in the air better, take less collapses, easy to fly, easy to launch. As you get better, I'm an intermediate pilot, so I'm on an intermediate wing. As you get better, you get into smaller wings, faster wings. They launch quicker. You can fly in higher winds. So there's a lot of different characteristics to every gliders. They make gliders specifically for cross-country, and they make gliders specifically for acro, and then they make gliders for recreational folks like most of us.
You're going to see we have quite a group of accomplished pilots. There's Brad. He's on a smaller aerobatic wing. Johnny Hunt, one of the first pilots to fly here in the valley. He's also a great cross-country pilot. Has flown over the Grand Teton probably more than anyone else. 99% of the time we land right in our main landing zone. We're not like a hot air balloon who drifts around and lands wherever it takes them. We pilot to our landing zone. So the sport's really progressed. I've been very fortunate to have gotten in early in 1991 and watched it grow. And watched it grow right here in Jackson from a couple pilots to now over 100 pilots in our Jackson Hole Free Flight Club, and growing every day as we introduce more people to the sport.
So good times. One of the reasons I like teaching film classes is because students can expose me to lots of work I wouldn't have gotten to see otherwise. This is a promo for a program that I taught. I hope you enjoy this video about what it was.
Brought us together from across the globe. We were selected for a program called Ocean for Life. We were all a bit anxious about what we were getting into, but excited for the experience ahead of us.
So high school students from Western and Middle Eastern nations coming together and learning about the oceans in the United States.
Before we first met, we learned about each other from a distance. Together, we had many adventures, exploring diverse locations, from the coral reefs of the Florida Keys and the majestic coastline of Northern California to the capital of the United States. We discovered the changing ocean, from the bottom of the deepest abyss to the sun-baked coastlines, and how people are changing it. We heard about these things in school, but meeting the scientists and experiencing their research firsthand gave us a kind of insight we could have only had by being there. It turns out the ocean is a complex system, teeming with life, from the microscopic to the gigantic. Anything that happens in one part of the ocean, like changing temperatures, oxygen levels, and pollution, affects the ocean and other parts of the world. We discovered that even though there's land scattered throughout it, and it's known by different names, the ocean is one connected body. But at the same time, we were discovering that like the ocean, we are all connected as people, despite the different names and features attributed to us. The challenges we face as students and as citizens in our home countries are shared challenges. Although we were coming from many countries, speaking many languages, and having many different customs, we found out how much we have in common, how much we are connected. Just like the ocean, we are all affected by the positive and negative forces in the world. We came here for a 2-week experience to learn about our ocean and environment. What we received were lessons that will last a lifetime, new perspectives on our world, each other, and ourselves. We discovered that we are all part of one world and one ocean, that we can be positive forces, and that when we work together, we can make our shared ocean, our shared world, a better place. The winds have scattered us back to all corners of the world, but now we are no longer strangers. We are friends.
So they were there to learn about ocean science, but myself and some other teachers were there to help them express and explore what they were learning through filmmaking. So sometimes filmmaking is not the ends, but it is actually the means to be able to communicate and understand ideas. As we move into the 21st century, being able to communicate using media is going to become increasingly important. So I think high school and earlier age students should learn not only how to read and write, but also how to tell stories through visual media, how to use film cameras, how to take photographs, how to create music. This is a trailer for my documentary. I went around the country with my backpack, made this movie all by myself, almost. It was a lot of fun, and I basically told 10 short stories about ducks, and I put them together in one movie. This was my thesis film for graduation at American University.
I knew all about duck stamps, but I never knew that the duck stamp was selected in a competition. It just kind of snowballed from there. Widgeon is a very popular bird. He's a very handsome bird. He has the color. He has everything. So I figured if I could paint a really good widgeon,
I like the sport of it. I love the meat that I shoot.
Here we go, I'm going to sound the horn here.
There are about 600,000 people living here, and only 50 of them can drive a duck.
If you look carefully enough, you can see a little line there. That's because the head is separate from the body when you start carving. So you have to screw the head onto the body once you're done carving the body and the head.
And the duck says,
Ducks fly together! Rope some toadies!
This serious!
Sont un crime, monsieur le maire, contre la commune.
Hallo, hij kan tijd niet gezien, zeg. Hoe gaat het met je?
A duck named Perky has made international headlines after cheating death twice.
This duck had been pronounced dead twice. In a week's time or something like that. And on,
I'm interested in general in sound underwater and how underwater animals use sound. How are the sounds that we are putting underwater affecting animals living in the water?
Now on an egg, when you cut an egg, you always want to cut out your smallest openings first, okay?
This is a goose egg on the outside with a duck egg inside.
Well,
I don't think they do much at all in here when they're closed in here because it's dark and that doesn't lend itself to much activity. With the light and our speaking, that's stimulating these guys to move and to come closer to me since I'm talking. They're wondering, are you my mother? They're a great pet. They can sort of communicate with them, and it's something a little different other than a dog or a cat.
This is Lucky. The Lucky Duck. He's earned his name many times, about 6 at least. Thanks. A duck can be a pesky creature.
So you can make a comedy documentary, right? It doesn't always have to be serious. This is the stop-motion experimental film I made with my friend Corey and a very talented circus performer named Ace, who basically bounces on a trampoline, and we photograph it to create animation. So we set up 4 cameras in different places in different ways, and we were making an animation of what was going on the canvas. We were making like an acrobatic film of what Ace was doing on the trampoline. We were making like a behind-the-scenes documentary, and then we were making a documentary of the documentary, and we just put it all together into this experimental music video, animation, whatever you'd call it. But it was a lot of fun. This took about 5 nights. We stayed until about 4 in the morning because we had this studio space at night. So it was a trapeze school in Brooklyn, and when it let out for its regular day, we got it all night long. Yeah, good times. That was a project called 1985. It's in some art galleries now, I believe. This is a shot that I'm working for a project on now called The Perilous Journey. It's about Alex Brown, who some of you know here at the college. And this is a story about how we survived a snowboarding accident turned into a lost weekend in the wilderness. And so we used my helmet camera to recreate some of his snowboarding adventures, and then went over on the backside to retrace the steps of his journey. Because this is what a flip camera or a helmet camera looks like.
The thing about backpack filmmaking is that when you're packing your gear, you think, oh yeah, I need that microphone, and I'm going to need those lens filters, and I should bring the batteries, all of them, and the charger, and all of the cards, and you bring the tripod, and oh, those cables, you got to bring all the cables, and then the camera, you can't forget the camera. And so the whole pack, you're thinking about all the things you need to bring. And then, when you're actually hiking, particularly uphill at the end of the day, your brain is doing the opposite. It's mentally unpacking. It's like, oh, I didn't need that cable. I didn't need all the batteries. I really just needed one of those filters. I'm only going to fill up one of the cards. And so you become very conscious of every ounce that you put into your pack that you're now responsible carrying with you at 9,000 or 10,000 feet altitude, miles up and down the mountain trails. Oh, and by the way, if you get thirsty, you probably want to bring water, and you're going to get hungry, so you should bring food. And then you should bring all of the regular stuff that backpackers usually bring, so you don't die, and so you have warm clothes. And so by the time you add all those things up, you have a pretty substantial pack. Not that I'm complaining. Why would I complain? This is my job. Get what you got to do out here. Makes it totally worthwhile. You know, an old saying, a bad day of backpack filmmaking is better than a good day at work. So yeah, no office job for me.
All right, thank you guys so much. Hit the lights, take questions. I don't know about you, but I'm exhausted.
That was fabulous.
Yeah.
Of all the places that you have been, as far as Galapagos, is there a favorite that you have been, or is there one that you're looking forward to going to?
So I have a pair of sneakers that I got in 2002 that have now been to 4 continents. I really want to get them onto all 7. And I feel like after I've done that, I can kind of retire them. I mean, you know, every place is great to visit in the sense that you get to discover what it is. And as a filmmaker, it's like, it's your job to go there and find out what's going on, find out what's interesting. And it's almost like, I feel like my job is to go and take back all of the things that maybe other people won't get to see. So sometimes I do the research necessary for the project, but I really try to avoid like over-reading or watching a lot of other video about the place, because I like to go in with a fresh set of eyes. I will tell you that there was a beach on the island of Isabella in the Galapagos that was just like the most amazing beach I've ever been to. I mean, the sands were just so fine and white, and it was so peaceful and tranquil, and I had the place to myself. I don't have it here, although I'm sure I could pull it up on Facebook. I made a short film there called Super Danny 64, and that's basically me with a towel on running around in the, I have a towel on as like a cape, and I'm running around on the beach because it was just so awesome. I don't know, I love being able to travel and visit places, and I went to Europe a lot as a kid. There's nothing wrong with Europe, but it always to me felt pretty, I don't know, pretty tame. It was just like a bunch of buildings and artwork that white people made, and I guess I was more excited in going to exotic places or seeing, you know, untamed wilderness or meeting indigenous cultures or the wildlife that's in those areas, and so that's what I think I'm most excited about. And being able to take it back with me, you know, not just being able to travel, but being able to design a project around it so that I can write it off on my taxes, and also so that I have something to share that's like meaningful, that's a story that other people can connect with in some way.
So where is your next journey taking you?
My next journey? Well, right now, this doesn't sound like the most glamorous answer, but I'm really focused 110% on building a film program at Adams State College, which is where I happen to be tonight. So I love being able to travel. I don't want to sound like an old man and say that, you know, I'm ready to settle down or anything, but I definitely feel like I have roots here. And as much as I enjoy being able to travel around the world, I also enjoy riding my bike around town and going to the wildlife refuge and hiking around here in the valley. I don't think I knew growing up here what a special place this is. And I'm always excited when people that I know from big cities come to visit me here so I can take them to all my favorite places. So in a way, this is my little soapbox, I am very interested in developing here a kind of local media production, the way people are interested in local agriculture. I think far too often we kind of, you know, import our images from elsewhere, and we import our stories from elsewhere and are convinced that we don't have stories here that are worth sharing or that are interesting, when in fact I think there are a lot of interesting stories here in the valley. I feel privileged to have started to tell some of them, whether it's like Snippy the horse or you know, any number of projects that people have hired me to work on or traveled to go do. So part of the documentary was about finding interesting stories in your own backyard. You don't necessarily need exotic animals in Africa to have a compelling story. That, you know, the animals that are in our backyard are in every way as interesting as ones that you would find, you know, on a savanna somewhere or on an island, you know, wilderness. So don't overlook what we have, and you should protect it. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah.
Did it ever occur to you that maybe white people are exotic to where you were in Kenya?
Oh yeah, totally, totally. I mean, Tim can probably tell as many stories as I can about our adventures in Kenya, but you know, it's a very different place, and it really does change. If you pay attention and you go in with your eyes open, it changes a lot of things that you might have overlooked. Like, you know, to this day, I carry a backpack with me everywhere, whether it has a camera in it or not. And I usually have like a Ziploc bag or something to take food home with me, because after you've seen a place like that, it's psychologically impossible to throw away food, you know? And the day-to-day things that you and I might take for granted that we consider as like mundane, you know, just being able to fly to Kenya and back. Most Kenyans could not afford to travel to the US. I met a guy there, he was about 21 at the time, and we're still friends. His name is Samuel, and you know, he's trying to start a business. He's, you know, in Kenya trying to do his own work, and we correspond all the time, and it is just night and day in terms of the number of opportunities that you have, even in like rural Colorado, where, you know, you don't necessarily realize the resources that you have available to you. But yeah, I'm very cognizant of the fact that I am an outsider when I travel somewhere. As a documentary filmmaker, you have to earn people's trust. You have to figure out how to do that pretty quickly, because you may not always have days or weeks to get to know them before you start filming. So I think being a likable and outgoing person is essential if you're traveling and you need to adopt their customs, maybe learn a few words of their language is always appreciated, and just having them know that you have their best interests in mind when you're trying to represent them is really important. And so when I make films, I care about the people who are in my films feeling well represented when they see the finished work. Unless they're an asshole, and then I'm fine making them look like an asshole on camera. I've done that a few times. I just finished a video about Newt Gingrich going to the moon. It was a lot of fun. Yeah.
Isn't that really deep? I was just pointing out how we use different words. Yeah, you are also aware that there is a squirrel attached to that camera.
Oh yeah, this is actually a dead cat, a black one, from my neighborhood. No, this is a windscreen. This is usually the thing that most people find exotic and interesting. What the heck is this thing? It's not to blend in with the wildlife or to get them to come up and talk to you. This actually just cancels out wind noise. Underneath here is a regular microphone that you'd expect to see, but all of these fibers actually absorb the wind before it hits the microphone to create distortion. So I just put this on because I thought someone might ask a question like that. It's a very popular thing. A lot of people like to pet it. I feel like that's not appropriate on a first date, but yeah. Other questions in the back? James?
Hey, Danny, always been curious. You do great work and whatnot. How do you, on the production side, how do you pick the right kind of music to go along with your film? Do you have that in your head that's going when you're filming this? How does that happen?
Yeah, music. I love working with different musicians on every project. Sometimes I don't have the luxury of being able to correspond with a musician long in advance and send them a rough cut and communicate about what we want the film to sound like. Sometimes I just have to use stock music. And there are some websites I like, and I just listen to it, and I get a feel for it. And the dance between the music and the image when I'm editing is very important to me. Because sometimes I really have the whole film and the narrative drives the story, the characters, what they're saying or what they're doing is what's important, and I just need some music to kind of set the tone for the thing. Other times I really am looking for music on which to cut the story to. It's like I'm being influenced by the beat or by the tonality of the music to, you know, like so I hear, you know, a 16 count piece of music that contains like a very lilting set of strings, and I need an image that sounds like that, you know. So watching films like Fantasia as a kid, I think, gave me a better sense of what do you see when you hear music, or what do you hear when you see images. You know, it has to work both ways. This semester I'm teaching a music video production class, and the students are responsible for creating their own music videos with found music, or they can create their own. And it really forces them to think through that process of how you take two very unlike elements, because the animals could not hear any of the music. I didn't pipe it in and play it while I was out there in Kenya. I don't know if they heard it or not, but I don't think so. So yeah, I think music is like the final touch. I think it's one of the things that separates the men from the boys, or separates what feels like footage from feeling like a film. You know, because everyone can go out and shoot footage these days. You know, these cameras cost less than a couple $100. They shoot in HD, you can upload to the web, so anyone can do that. It's not the hardware or the technology that's the obstacle anymore. It's being able to tell stories. It's being able to do what we've been doing for thousands of years, maybe tens or hundreds of thousands of years, as we're around the campfire trying to teach each other things or learn things through the stories that we tell. And all of these fancy tools with their, you know, their pixels and their waveforms and their resolution, these are all just new ways of telling, I think, the same stories that we try to tell throughout history. And so this is merely a way to get at that. So filmmaking is a combination of the written storytelling elements that go into, you know, what Homer was doing with the Odyssey or the Iliad, adding to that photography and all of the fine arts that go into painting and composition. It indeed has acting, theater, performance. It has an element of journalism. If you're doing documentary filmmaking, it's not simply long-form journalism. I think there's an element of art that you can add to your work that goes beyond a 60-minute story, although there's some artful journalists out there who really try to get a story in a captivating way. In some ways, those mediums are converging. But, you know, ultimately then adding in music and then editing, which is this thing that never really existed before because nothing had done what filmmaking was doing. So if you look at the history of films, you see people for the first 20 or 30 years trying to figure out, well, how do we tell a story? How do we take several angles of different things and put them together? You know, there was an early film about firemen rescuing people from a building, and they show the outside shot where the firemen go in, they rescue the woman from the top floor, and then they get everyone out before the building collapses. And then the next shot is the inside, and the woman is there again, and then the firemen come in and rescue her and take her out. Well, that's whack. But at the time they were doing that, it seemed as logical as any other method to say, this is what happened from the outside, and then this is what happened from the inside. We're just going to show you the same thing twice from different angles. But then eventually they're like, well, maybe we could have parallel action. We can take something from the outside, something from the inside, and then cut them together. So you see a shot of someone running down a hallway, you see a shot of me lecturing, and then a shot of the feet running down the hallway, and then me drawing on the blackboard. You're already inferring that these sets of competing shots have a relationship, and they're going to combine. And sure enough, the student comes running in late for class, and that resolves the tension that was going on in those shots. And then, you know, in the 90s and 2000s, and really even before that, you had filmmakers like Quentin Tarantino or Christopher Nolan in Memento showing you the same thing over and over from different angles, like you saw with The Fireman over again. So there's kind of an endless reservoir of existing arts that you can draw from that can inform your work today. That's a long answer to the question about how do I pick my music. That's why I'm a professor. They pay me to talk. Anyone else? Yeah, Devin?
Yeah, I was wondering, you may have covered this already, but I stepped in a little late. So as far as like funding for these projects, I mean, you have to have somebody putting the bill, you know, to go to Kenya, to go to the Galapagos Islands. So in that, where do you search for funding, and also, in addition, your integrity as an artist, where does that fall as far as, you know?
When someone's paying you.
Yeah, you have
Sure.
a project to do,
Right.
but while you're doing that project, you find something.
Yeah, totally. There are 1,000,001 ways to fund a film. Filmmakers are always innovating new ways to do it. There are online crowdsourcing fundraising websites like Indiegogo or Kickstarter that allow you to just tell all your friends about your project and raise money. There are foundations that may be interested in funding your film. There are programs and organizations. And sometimes it's not like, I want to make a film, how can I get someone to pay for it? Sometimes it's like, we have a program called Ocean for Life. We're bringing students from all around the world, and we're already shelling out a lot of money to be able to do that. We might as well pay a little bit more and film it to promote our work, to maybe raise funds for the following year. Because we live in a culture now where if it didn't get filmed, it didn't happen. So it's very important to document what it is that you're doing. If for no other reason than the people who paid for it would like to see what it is that they paid for. And so sometimes I get hired to film something that cost a lot of other people's money, and they just want a return on their investment, or at least a memento of what happened. That's why I started filming weddings. If you're going to spend, you know, 30, 50, or I filmed a $200,000 wedding, people want to be able to get, you know, some memories out of that experience. So in a way, filmmaking is nothing more than that. As for myself, you know, I have a for-profit side to my video business. People can hire me, and I'll do work for them. And, you know, the philosophy is good, fast, cheap. Pick two, all right? I'm good and I'm fast, all right? That's me. I've made that decision. So there are the works that I do that actually pay for me to be able to go do the other stuff. I mean, my first film camera I bought because I wanted to start making movies. And lo and behold, people they heard that I was like kind of good at this, or at least I was a guy with a camera. And then so they started hiring me to film things. And that was cool, because I was no longer making minimum wage as like a college student. I had a job where like I was my own boss, and I could send out invoices and receive checks and like set my own hours and go places, meet people, do things. No 2 days are alike if you have this job. So I was like, well, gosh, maybe all this equipment that I already have to do my own stuff, people would like pay me to do it. What a great deal. And so now a lot of the equipment I buy, it may be for a specific job that someone's paying me for, and then I just build that into my inventory and I keep using it. So I don't know, you know, to be honest with you, it is possible to sit at a desk every day and write grants and call foundations and seek investors. But I would rather use that time to get paid to make more videos, get better at making videos, okay, so that when I have enough money to go out and make something I really want to make, I already have all my gear. I don't need to rent it from someone else. I already have all the experience that I need, or at least learn, to go out and do it. And also because I've raised the funds myself, I don't have to ask anyone's permission to get the final product that I want. Now, if I'm working for someone else, they're my client, and I'm not happy unless they're happy. Because unless it's the best video for their website, or to raise money for their cause or organization, or to communicate their message, I haven't done my job. But when it comes to my own work, yeah, I love being able to make those decisions for myself, and then I have a close cadre of filmmaker friends who review my work and give me good feedback, and I screen it and take that back to the editing room. And you know, it's a little bit like sculpting, because you start out with this big block, and eventually you have to really work it down so that only the essentials are left, and you don't have all that extra fat laying around on your work. So yeah, I've never felt personally compromised with artistic integrity. There's some stuff I don't want to put my name on. You know, when the IRS hires me to make a video about a new tax form, Form 8888, that they introduced last year so that you can take a portion of your tax return and roll it directly into savings bonds, well, that was exciting for them. And so they filmed this hour-and-a-half long conference, and I was there to film the conference. I handed the tapes over, and that paid for my groceries for a couple months. That's cool. You know, so there are levels to it. I've never done something that I felt personally, you know, compromised at doing. Sometimes I don't totally agree with the issue that I'm filming. Sometimes I think I don't need to take a position on the issue because I'm here to just film and report what's going on. And my job is to turn it over to you, so you probably couldn't tell which side or which angle I came at it with because you just saw everything as it happened. That's kind of the goal sometimes.
Well, I know some of you might have to leave, but I'm sure Danny will be happy to stick around and answer more questions. But let's, before we have a chance, thank Danny one more time.
Adams State College. Great stories begin here.